Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video, and this is a paid request from Thom. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your patience. I do appreciate it. For those interested in requesting any type of videos, random thoughts, streams, commentaries, video game playthrough for an hour, a full playthrough, tier list, ranking, whatever the case, feel free to send it. PayPal, CashApp, those are the best ways to do it. Links are down below in the info box, and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. So thank you. Now this is for a documentary called, I'm going to butcher this, Mancunian Man, The Life of what the fuck is Clem? Cliff Twemlow. I tried to combine the two names, Cliff Twemlow. Now, Severin Films, which I have the Bruce Exploitation box set, I should say, The Clones of Bruce, very cool box set with a really good documentary. Well, they did a similar box set for this guy's films. Now, I don't have that box set. Maybe I'll pick up one day, who knows. But this guy who was in the UK, was a native of Manchester, Cliff Twemlow, he made this series of films. A lot of them didn't get much of a release, at least until, I guess, this box set. His most famous film was this film called GBH, known as Grievous Bodily Harm, which was one of the video nasties, mainly for its cover where it's Cliff with like an axe or something kind of doing like this, like slamming down, he's got blood all over him. But it's an action movie. It's like a shot on video action film. And I heard of GBH. I've never seen that or any of his other films. This was a good documentary, though. I thought this was fairly interesting. Even though I didn't know. I could see, like, the movies, some of them have, like, an Andy Sedaris kind of flavor to them. There's action, there's hot girls, there's cars, there's some violence. At least for some of them. I don't know about the later ones. And you do tell there's a bit of a B movie quality to these films, or C movie quality. And maybe they're good, maybe they suck ass, but the guy behind it was definitely an intriguing fellow. I would say that. Because Cliff grew up in the 1930s. He was a scrawny kid, but he learned boxing enough to be called Strapper Twim. And then he got into bodybuilding. And he was a writer, as in, like, he wrote music. He wrote themes. In the movie Dawn of the Dead, the original, you know, when the rednecks are with the soldiers and they're shooting the zombies while our main characters are in the helicopter, there's this song, 'Cause I'm a man, 'cause I'm a man, ba-do-do-do-do-do-do, 'cause I'm a man. He wrote that song. I'm like, oh shit, okay, cool, he wrote that song. He actually wrote a song called Live and Let Die, but Paul McCartney was coming out with the James Bond, so they pretty much told them you can't use it, and there's a bit of a lawsuit. But he wrote some theme songs and, you know, got residuals for a while. He also was a bouncer, and he wrote this book called The Tuxedo Warrior, which is a cool title. And the movie, it was optioned to a movie, but what happened was they didn't have him star in the movie. They had another guy do it. They called the person Cliff, but then they changed the whole story. Instead of a guy who was a bouncer, instead it was about diamond smuggling, and it took place in Africa. So it was nothing like the book at all. But Cliff got to have a big part in it, and he met people like Steve Powell, who was a martial artist. He met other people. And they show a lot of clips from his films, and they look like maybe it's the way it's edited in a rapid fire succession, but some of it looks fun. I don't know about the Tuxedo Warrior, but I mean, Cliff, he had a bit part, but he liked the feel of it, so he really wanted to do films on his own terms. So he wrote. In fact, one of the films he wrote, it never got made. Well, a chunk of them didn't, but one of them was going to be a horror film called The Pike, which he says he wrote it before Jaws, but I'm sure the idea of making it is because of the success of Jaws. And this is interesting because, like, there's the book he wrote, which was a monster about like a 12-foot pike, fish. And then they show that they made it, like full size. They show the behind the scenes photos. We see the practical effects. And then what happened was they cast Joan Collins, the actress in it. There's even old footage back. I mean, I would say this is a very well edited film. They got some talking head interviews with people who knew Cliff and worked on those films. But a lot of like clips from the movies and other stuff, footage from back in the day, including this making of this film, interviews from back in the day. But here's the thing. It didn't work in the water. Which makes sense, because hell, if Steven Spielberg couldn't get the fucking thing to work in the water, what good are these guys going to do? And there's a story about how there was supposed to be this press meeting, and they were going to show the press. It didn't work. In fact, it like sprayed water on the press, and then when all the press wrote it up, they just said, this is shit. It's going to bomb. They laughed at it. And the funding got pulled, and then the movie was never made. So that was down the drain. So it's like, well, wait a minute. We have the VHS is a new thing. Why don't we make a movie for VHS? Or shoot it on VHS tape. And we'll name it GBH, Grievous Bodily Harm. They got some Swedish businessmen to pony up the cash. And I mean, it does look like kind of a fun, B-movie. Lines like, you put teeth in your mouth. Ruined a perfectly good ass. Which I'm like, that's a different way of calling someone an asshole, but, I like it. And they talk about, this is really the movie about low budget, down and dirty filmmaking. That independent spirit of trying to get the shot done, trying to get the movie done, and the little ups and downs of adventure that goes into making these movies. And that type of independence, stealing shots, lying to get into places, the little ups and downs and mishaps. Fun stories. Like how they get the bar and say, oh yeah, this guy said we could shoot here. Who? Oh yeah, this guy. Or the owner told us. Now, granted, it may be the owner they're talking to, and then they couldn't, but it wasn't. It's like, oh, okay. So they shoot like a fight scene in this bar. Oh, this one guy's talking about, oh, we shot this scene where we pull out shotguns and we shoot. And then there's these people like running and streaming, and we're like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Why are they all after us? You got permission, right? No. Well, then we had to lady it. We had to get the hell out of Dodge because they thought we were crazy nuts with shotguns. And they talk about the making of that film and how it became a video nasty, and because of that, it actually sold very well. And that really kicked the butt in for Cliff to... He didn't direct the film, but he starred in the film. He wrote the film, did music for the film. This other guy directed it, David, which his name pops up quite a few bit in this documentary. So they want to make another film, Target Eve Island. And this is a crazy story, man. I would say this. It is on YouTube, this documentary, if you want to give it a look. It is over 2 hours, but I was fascinated. I thought it was well edited. It kept at a good pace. People really seemed to like this guy. Sadly, this guy passed away in 1993. But he did that independent spirit. And you gotta admire the guy. Now, maybe the films were good or bad, I don't know. I've never seen them. But you gotta admire the guy. And it really seemed like he just loved... He was a guy that, back to the day, he got sand kicked in his face. And just like that advertisement, you tired of people kicking sand in your face? So he wanted to be big and strong and be known and be popular, and he lived vicariously through these movies, playing the tough guy character, women, fast cars, and then when they were done, he didn't really have a lot in between, which is kind of the sad part of it all, the sad part of the story, which they get into later in the documentary. But it is on YouTube if you want to see it. I would recommend it. Just mentioning that before I go into spoilers. Because this story about Target Eve Island, probably my favorite story in the whole documentary. Because it's insane. So spoilers. So now he really wants to do this kind of James Bond type of movie. And they go to the Caribbean and just... There was some fight scene they were doing, and the cameraman's hand got accidentally stabbed. The director, David, kept spending money on his own bills instead of the movie, so they ran out of money. Plus, he had all these issues with his girlfriend, so they didn't have much of a director. They didn't know where they were going to eat. One guy had to get a job at a lobster place to steal lobster to feed his buddies. And then, like, the Caribbean, they couldn't afford it more, so they went to Grenada. Now, this is where it gets even more crazy. When they went to Grenada, there were people with guns aiming at them, saying, "You need to come with us." And, "Oh, you're a film crew? This script? Well, the Russians need to win." And they had bodyguards making sure they had the movie changed to fit what they wanted. Oh, then a war broke out. This is when the U.S. invaded Grenada. And then some of the people thought that the crew was working with the military. Just convenient timing. They had to talk their way out of it. And so they just shot footage. So I guess this is one of those films that at the time was never released, but I guess is in that box set. If you watch the film, there'll be random footage of the invasion of Grenada, because we just shot this. We'll shoot this while we're here, because it gives us more bang for our buck, I guess. And like, this film took years to do, and they say it was never completed, but I believe it is on that box set. And that's a running theme afterward, is that they would make these films, and the people who made them never got to see the completed film. Whether it be Target Eve Island, or this one called the Ibiza Connection, where Cliff did a stunt that broke his ribs and nose, or the recording got fucked, so they had to redub everybody's voice. There were films that they did like little trailers to, but they never made. Like for a movie called Tokyo Surprise, about genetically engineered energy drinks coming from Tokyo. Okay, but that film was never made. And they go through other films. Moonstalker, which was actually shot on film. Supposed to be a creature feature film, but I've heard that that's actually a pretty boring film. But it didn't really get released until Severin did it. Then there was one called The Eye of Satan. There's a space film called Firestar. And it goes through a little bit making of these films and how some of them they never got released, and the more frustration of we're doing these films but we're not able to actually see how these films were. And it's like, why don't you finish this film and release it, and that way you can make some money or get some money back for your next one. But Cliff had a bad habit of doing it up to a point and not following through. And then, like people said, he was kind of living the dream. He lived the dream, and then he woke up, and he couldn't handle waking up. Because he's living the dream, and he's doing these films, and he's this big hero, but then when it's done, because he spent all this money, the residuals from his music stuff is getting less and less. He's having less and less money. He had to live on this flat above, I forget what it was above. He really wanted to get in better shape, so he dabbled in steroids, which was a big mistake. They did GBH2, which Gangsters financed, but then the film didn't do anything, and the Gangsters didn't get their money back. I'm surprised the Gangsters didn't try to hunt down Cliff, but I guess Cliff sweet talked his way out of it. And pretty much he got into a state of depression, bankruptcy. His music royalties was less and less. And then eventually in 93 he had a heart attack. They said his heart was like 2.5 sizes more than it would be, or should be, because of the steroids, among other shit. And I mean, sadly a lot of people, along with other stuff, it's taken a lot of people. I mean, that's why a lot of those wrestlers, Hulk Hogan, I mean, he lived longer than others. But I mean, Ultimate Warrior, Roddy Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage. If not that, then, either steroids or other drugs. I'll say that. British Bulldog. Yeah. It's one of those things, like, there are some WrestleManias you watch and there's not many people left in them. Or hell, some Royal Rumbles that you watch. You watch an older Royal Rumble and you go, man, so many of these people are gone. Like, if you watch, what's the Royal Rumble in 1992? And you're like, yeah, Roddy Piper's gone, Macho Man is gone, Hulk Hogan is gone, Sid is gone. Man, steroids are a motherfucker, man. That's why, it's bad. I mean, I know some of these action stars dealt with that. I mean, yeah, I think at one point Arnold had heart problems. He had to have heart surgery, I think right before End of Days. But yeah. So yeah, 1993 he passed away. And like I said, I did not know much about this guy. I'd never seen any of his films. But again, this commentary. This documentary was very intriguing. It was very intriguing to see what kind of people said he was a nice guy. Most people had nothing but good things to say about him. I think in the early days he was a bit of a womanizer, but it seemed like he settled quickly after that, and a lot of people had a lot of nice things to say about him. Definitely they say that they had a lot of influence of how films were made in the UK. I don't know. I don't live in the UK. If anyone watching this is from the UK, did you know this guy, Cliff Twemlow? As in, have you heard of this guy and his films, or at least around Manchester? But I mean, this stuff I find interesting because, you know, to do a documentary guy, to do a documentary, fuck shit, on a guy that isn't talked about much, someone like me has never heard of, that you get some intrigue and, you know, a wealth of new information. And it's like one of the reviews I need to do and watch is, I guess there was a new documentary on Jaws. I look forward to watch it, but I'm like, well, how many times can you do a documentary on Jaws? I mean, The Shark Is Still Working is still pretty damn good documentary. So I don't know what this new documentary will be like. I'll give it a watch sometime, but it's like we know about Jaws, but like this guy didn't know anything about it, and there was some very fun, interesting stories. Like, a wealth of footage they edited together, and overall, pretty good documentary. So, if you like documentaries about independent filmmaking, that spirit of independent filmmaking, it's definitely worth a look. So, thanks once again, Tom. Take care. It is on YouTube as of right now that I'm recording this. Feel free to check it out if you want. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.